Salutations, everybody. You know what it's time for? Our Sunday live edition of the Streakers Island Podcast. It is I, Jacob Moore, the self-proclaimed sports analyst. And Dan, More for Your Money is with us. And Dan, you told me why Chazzy's not with us today. He's not dead. Don't worry, people. But why isn't Chazzy on the show today? You said he has a good reason.
Yeah, dude. He's too busy being the Easter Bunny. He's got to hide the chocolates with the kitties. And that's not in a bad way. It's in the best way possible. Nothing bad here. He just has to hide the chocolates with the kids. I know it might sound bad, but trust me, it's not.
Also, too, let's be honest, Leaf fans, non-Leaf
No,
fans...
wait a minute. I remember the reason. Because he's not a Maple Leaf fan. And this is our Maple Leaf special!
Because this is a huge game. Like, Dan, you're older. You're an old fart like I am. So while I send out the link to let everyone know that we're live right now, why don't you quickly speak on the Battle of Ontario and why it's such a big, big game?
Well, for example, we're both, Jacob and I, we're both fans of football and hockey. And people ask us, what's the difference? Difference is, you look at a game like a Battle of Ontario, most sports are a fight. The difference is, in Battle of Ontario, it's a war. It's a bloodbath. They hate each other. That's what makes it so fascinating. You look back in the day, you had Daniel Elfison threw his filthy hit on Darcy Tucker, which back in 2002, they didn't even call it as a penalty. Nowadays, would have been a 25-game suspension and concussion protocol my butt. You know, but back then, it was not, it was just a plain old hockey game. That's what really started the rivalry. Then you fast forward a couple more years in 2004, when our captain, Masson Dean, broke his stick. He threw the stick up at the crowd in frustration. And then Daniel Elfison broke his stick, and he just went, tossed it up and did it forward in the ACC, mind you, in our arena. Okay? Then it was dead a couple years as, you know, society sucks nowadays and hockey kind of fell apart. But now we ramp it up, and you have Craig Ripley take a slap shot in the empty net, and Morgan Riley cross-check the guy in the head, which he should have. I don't think it's going to be a suspension. Doing something crazy like that, you got to expect something crazy to happen to you. So I'm hoping that's going to amp up the rivalry of this game, because you go back in the early 2000s, it was just nuts, you know. And you look at just not the physicality, but all the Hall of Fame players, like on both sides. Okay, maybe not all in the Hall of Fame yet, but great players like Daniel Elfison, Marian Hossa, Radek Bonk, Chris Phillips, Zdeno Chara, Patrick Aleem. And you look at Toronto, Brian Leetch, Brian McCabe, Thomas Callaway, Ken Cree, Owen Nolan, Joe Newendike, Gary Roberts, Alexander McGillney, Matt Sundin, Stumpy, rest in peace, Sergei Berezin. So many great people on both sides. That's just what makes this rivalry so incredible. I actually forgot about Jason Spencer on both sides there, but you know, just an incredible group of people on both sides of the ice.
Yeah, but I gotta say, I think this Battle of Ontario, I think it's gonna pick right back up where it left off.
I sure hope so.
Because let's be honest here, when you mentioned the Wrigley Gregg slap shot into the empty net, Morgan Riley cross check to the head, that really reignited this rivalry.
100%. And I think the other key player to ignite this rivalry is Max Domi, because Ty Domi and Chris Neal were the center stage for Toronto and Ottawa, and Max Domi will understand how important this rivalry is versus guys like Austin Matthews and really, you know, guys that didn't grow up watching this may not understand, but a guy like Max Domi and Tkachuk, they're going to know how big this series is. And don't forget, I called it on the Speakers Island podcast. Ryan Reeves is back in the NHL and available to play. So if game one goes crazy, we expect them to see game two, or just make it even more nuts.
Mind you, the Leafs lines, and let's start getting into the Leafs lines here, actually.
Yeah.
And the Toronto Maple Leafs lines are kind of what I expected. They have not changed from the last couple games. And I know, Dan, you weren't overly pleased when we talked about this a little bit, how I said I think these lines are going to remain the same. But we got the top line of Knies, Matthews, Marner. Second line, Domi, Tavares, Nylander. Third, McMahon, Holmberg, Robertson. Fourth, Lawrence, Lawton, Yarncroke. Now, defense, the Leafs are getting some big pieces back.
Yes.
Jake McCabe is back to play with Chris Tanev. You have Riley and Carlo and Benoit and OEL.
Shit.
Also, there's no more speculation. Anthony Stolarz is the starter for tonight. He
100%.
is guy. Like, when you look at these lines right off the hop, I think he made the right decision sticking with them because the Leafs have been on, hear me out. The Leafs have been on such a good roll of late. I think it made sense to stick with the lines the way they had them. The team's been playing well, so it's hard for me to disagree with what's been working.
Okay, so you won the last 5 games of a defense core. So you're going to bench OVL and McCabe too and play whoever that guy is from the Murrays of good.
No, not at all.
Myers.
But those were due to injury. The other lineup decisions.
They were injured too. If Pacioretty and Kemp was not injured, they would never been out of the lineup.
Pacioretty, I don't know. Kemp, I'll be honest, I would have played Kemp over Holmberg.
Yeah, I like Holmberg, but I would have too.
I think this is done more for a balanced scoring between all 4 lines. I think that was more the thought process.
Yeah, but Kemp's got offensive touch that people don't know about.
Yeah, but Holmberg, remember, Holmberg's a guy that has moved up and down all 4 lines over the last 2 years, right? He's a guy that you can put on any line.
I get that.
Which is what they like about them. Now, I want to talk a bit about the Senators lineup coming into tonight. And
yes,
the big piece for the Senators is Brady Tkachuk is back. Like him or hate him, he is a guy that creates a lot of crap.
He's going to amp up his rivalry for sure on the Ottawa side.
He's going to heat this up, and he's going to be on the top line with Stützle and Claude Giroux. I think Claude Giroux, if the Senators can win this series, he's going to have to be big. Then your second line, Perron, Cousins, and Batherson. Batherson's had a phenomenal year this year.
That's a great second line, by the way. Holy
your third line with Ridley Gregg, Shane Pinto, and Michael Amadio. Shout out to Amadio, Sault Ste. Marie kid. And
that's where it falls apart.
I disagree with you there. I think that's a pretty good 4th line. Shane Pinto is a 20-goal scorer this year.
Yeah, I'll be a good 4th line. Problem is, it's a 3rd line.
Then your 4th line with Highmore, Gaudette, and Zetterlund.
Like, for perspective, Gaudette even couldn't make the Maple Leafs when we had him.
But, yeah, it was also under Sheldon Keefe, who we just saw trying to coach the Devils today did not go very well.
The Devils look like the Leafs last year.
Then you look at the defense in Ottawa. You got Jake Sanderson and Zub, Chabot and Jensen, Cleveland and Matt. Some name I can't pronounce. This is where I think the issues could be in Ottawa is this defense group. I think your first pairing and second pairing is pretty good. Your third pairing could be a real problem. Hold on. You get that third pairing out there against the Matthews line because remember, Toronto's gonna have last change here today.
Yeah,
that's gonna be tough for them. And you look at Toronto's lineup, and I've brought this up before. What defensive pairing are you putting against what? Because the top line, you got Nyes, Matthews, Marner. But then the second line, you might argue, is more offensive prowess than the top line with the year Tavares and Nylander have both had. You have 2 of the best goal scorers in the NHL on the same line.
Now, here's my $1 million question. I think it's great we went through for lineups of both teams. But we did something yesterday. Trevor, so out to shades here for the one question that was submitted yesterday. It took 58 minutes for us to answer. We went through the playoff bracket. One series with Winnipeg and St. Louis. We went through who had the advantage of each side. Like, who had the advantage in forwards, who had the advantage of defense, who had the advantage of goaltending. I think if we had more time, we should have done that with all of the series. So now that we're talking Toronto and Ottawa, Battle of Ontario, let's do that. Who has the advantage of goaltending out of these 2 teams?
Dan, I am training you well to be a show host, my friend. That was a beautiful segue.
Yay, I did something. I don't know what I did, but I did it.
Honestly, this is a tough decision for me on who has the edge in net. I think Toronto is deeper in net with Stolarz and Woll. But Stolarz versus Ullmark, this depends which Ullmark you get. Because Ullmark's been up and down this year, while Stolarz, when he's healthy, has been very consistent. Both of these goalies can steal games. I'll be honest, goaltending here, I'm giving it a draw. I think both goalies have the ability to take over this series. Both goalies have put up Vezina caliber games and have had Vezina caliber stretches. Are they going to win the Vezina this year? Absolutely not. but both of these guys have gone on stretches. I maybe give it to Stolarz slightly just because Stolarz is 8-0-0 with 3 shutouts in his last 8 starts. But Ullmark has got more playoff experience.
See, maybe I'm going to get booed at here, but I actually disagree with you, Jacob. I think at goaltending, Ottawa has the advantage. I hate saying I have my Maple Leaf sweater on, but I think Ullmark's got a little more experience. Ullmark has been healthier throughout the year, a little more consistent, and he's just a very good goalie. I think Boston made the huge mistake getting rid of him and keeping Swayman, and Ullmark's going to show why this playoffs. I think Ottawa's going to advance us in goal. And if you guys don't agree, comment, email, and message us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, well, wherever the heck Jacob posted this thing, but you can comment live. So bring in those comments, bring on those questions. Do I deserve the circus book for saying that? I don't know. You be the judge.
I don't think you do, actually, because I quickly just pulled up Louis Ullmark's stats. He's played 44 games this year, 125, 4 shutouts, a 272 goals against average, and a 910 save percentage. And he's got playoff experience, right? We look at his playoff stats in Boston. Started in the 1 game, and I mean the stats you can't really go by because he came in the second game for Swayman.
Yeah.
But actually, though, if you look at Ullmark's playoff stats, they're not nearly as good as they are in the regular season.
I know. That's really no question.
However, I think Ullmark, in my opinion, his game has actually gotten better this year than it was last year. And I think as the year has gone on, he has looked very, very, very comfortable.
Well, I think Ullmark is better this year because now Ullmark, no disrespect to the Ottawa backup.
Forsberg. He's pretty.
Forsberg.
No
disrespect to Forsberg, but Omar, forget. Omar knows that this is his team.
Mm-hmm.
Versus in Boston, he always had a share of a neck with someone. So,
which was stupid. I don't know why Boston went. I don't know what their obsession is with Jeremy Swayman.
And I hate to say it, I think at this point, Forsberg's a better backup than Woll if God forbid an injury happened, because Woll fell up mentally, hasn't been there for the last couple months, unfortunately.
Now, I do want to bring up Anthony Stolarz, and statistically,
he's better.
He's got a 214 goals against average, a 926 save percentage, and 4 shutouts in just 34 games. The 34 games thing is the big question mark about Stolarz maybe being able to run out through if the Leafs can go 3-4 rounds. We're just talking this round here. And this is why I'm giving Stolarz this slight edge. He has just been sharper down the stretch.
Yes.
If you look in his last 5 starts, 3 of them are shutouts. He has been playing at a very, very, very high level.
Yes.
Now, I get everyone's going to say the same thing you said, Dan. He doesn't have the playoff experience. He came in relief for 1 game for Florida.
Right.
Which did not, just to be honest, that whole game didn't go well for anyone. But
no.
You do look at Anthony Stolarz, though. He does have some playoff experience with the London Knights.
Yeah.
And, the London Knights they were a real competitive team back then. And Stolarz, to me, was the backup for Bobrovsky.
I was just going to say that.
So I do think, also shout out to Ethan Cullen, who's watching on Instagram. Danny,
hey, my buddy.
Good friend of the program. But I do feel Toronto's got the slight advantage in net right now.
I got a question, Ethan. Bring it on.
I changed my mind by Tuesday. Honestly, I might. But today, don't knock over your PlayStation. Today,
yeah, I know.
I'm going to give the advantage to Toronto in net slightly.
Okay. So what about defense?
Okay, so defense, Toronto.
Oh, 100%.
Easily. Toronto's defense, I would argue Toronto has 7 defensemen who could be playing in this game.
Yeah.
Because I feel Philip Myers actually played well enough to get a spot.
Me too.
The Leafs defense is very stacked.
Especially down the stretch when we had some injury problems.
So I look at this, and the Leafs definitely have the advantage of defense. I'll be honest, I think defensively is Ottawa's weakest group in their roster.
I agree. I don't even know who Cullen is, the third pairing. And
I love Sanderson and Zub. I've always thought Thomas Chabot is a bit overrated, to be completely honest with you.
I think Anderson took over that spot at franchise defense over Chabot.
He really has. And yeah, your third pairing, maybe they don't use it much in Ottawa. I don't know. But I don't love the third pairing in Ottawa versus Toronto. Dan, I'm not sure if you agree with me, but I really do feel the Leafs have the advantage on D.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. One thing with Ottawa, I think they made a big mistake on trade deadline because they lost. Well, they didn't lose them. They trade Jacob Chikrin to Washington and in the offseason because Chikrin, I thought was a great fit in Ottawa, but he didn't fully work. He didn't
fit in Ottawa.
Right. But the problem is, now that they got rid of him, they never replaced him.
No, they didn't.
And same with the Kias the Leafs had for a little bit. Great defenseman in Ottawa, and they never replaced him. So you got a really big gap there.
It's interesting Ottawa didn't go for a guy like a Luke Schenn just to really...
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Because, mind you, Winnipeg brought in Luke Schenn, which was the perfect move for Winnipeg.
Oh, yeah,
and
great
Winnipeg
game
really
last night.
showed... I think Winnipeg fans are breathing a lot easier after that game one, winning that one against the Blues, although Hellebuyck needs to be better. Yeah. But I do feel for Ottawa, I agree with you. I think they needed to... They've lost some pieces at defense, and they haven't really fixed them yet. And when we talk, let's now talk about the forward groups a bit, and then I want to talk power play units.
That's one thing I'm going to say is kind of crazy and off the board. I think going into this playoffs, you look at the top six, I think the Leafs have the best defense in the league.
Yeah, it's debatable.
Will he have OVL as a fair pairing?
The only
he won the cup last year.
The only somewhat question mark for Toronto on defense would be Simone Benoit, although I think Benoit's had a really good year this year.
He had a career year, and he proved it even more so down the stretch, doing his big fights, doing his heavyweight hits, and he's not a reliability defensively at all. I say
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying when you're talking about being the best defense core in the playoffs.
Well, who's better?
You could argue Florida once Aaron Ekblad's back from suspension.
Yeah, possibly.
You could also, honestly, you could argue the Winnipeg Jets.
Luke Schenn, yeah.
Stanley and Luke Schenn as your third pairing.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk forward group, and you may think I'm absolutely crazy. I don't think there's a huge gap in forward talent, at least in the top six, between Ottawa and Toronto.
Jacob, can I ask you an important question?
Sure.
Have you been drinking alcohol this Easter dinner?
No, I have not.
Because you are out to lunch.
I'm not out to lunch.
A huge gap in the forwards. I said
the top six. The top six forwards.
Yeah, I'm going to say the top six. The top six even.
The top six, your top line for Ottawa is Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, and Claude Giroux. Toronto's top line is Nyes, Matthews, Marner. I'd say the Leaf top line's a little more skilled. Senators top line's a little more gritty. I could see that going either way. Your second line of Perron, Cousins, and Batherson. I know you and I both thought that Cousins trade was a terrible trade. What has really worked out for Ottawa? Dylan Cousins has upped his game to a whole new level, and he is finding ways to really be a big part of that. So I would say the top six, and okay, then go to Toronto's second line. You have Domi, Tavares, and Nylander.
45 goals, bud.
I think Toronto has the best second. When you talk about playoffs, I think the Leafs have the best second line going into the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I think Ottawa has the grittiest top six. One of the grittiest top sixes in the NHL. This is a top six that is going to really put you in a lot of pain. My only concern for their top sixes, besides of Perron and Giroux, none of them have played a playoff game.
Right, yeah.
So, mind you, they have no expectations. It's the bottom six.
That's where
I'm Ottawa, I'm a little concerned. The third and fourth lines, especially the fourth line. I know you disagree with me, Dan. I actually like that third line of Greg, Pinto, and Amadio. I think you have three. You have three solid players.
It's like a Phoenix, Arizona third line.
That team doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly my point. It's pathetic.
It's not.
One thing I'm surprised they're not playing is Nick Cousins.
He's injured, I believe.
Oh, okay. Because that's a big gap for them. Nick Cousins was a great pickup in the offseason.
Yeah, but you look at Ridley Gray. He's got 34 points in 78 games. That's not terrible for a third liner. And Shane Pinto has had a career year this year. I believe he's got 21 goals this year. I'm just confirming. But Shane Pinto has really, I think he's going to have to be really big in this series for the Senators.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah. Like Shane Pinto, 21 goals, 16 assists for 37 points. That's not too shabby. And then Mike Amadio, he was a part of that Stanley Cup winning team in Vegas. So that's a big thing that's going to help Ottawa on that third line. Really? He's a guy with some playoff experience, Mike Amadio.
I didn't know he was there.
Yes, he was. And Michael Amadio,
for a hot minute?
They did, and they just gave him away for nothing. Amadio, 11 goals, 16 assists for 27 points. But Amadio's a big dude, right? Like, he's 6'1", 200 pounds. He's a bigger guy, right?
Yeah.
So he does add some grit. Yeah, and in that playoff run for the Golden Knights, he did have 5 goals, 5 assists for 10 points in 16 games, with only playing 12 minutes a night on average. So, you know what? He's a guy that can certainly add to that. That's what I say. I think Ottawa and Toronto's third line, comparing it to Toronto's third line, and McMahon, Holmberg, and Robertson. Robertson's my question mark on the third line. I get why he's playing, because he had 14 goals, can't remember any assists, but 14 goals while coming in and out of the lineup. He's a guy.
He had 15 goals, 15 goals to 7 assists.
Okay, but then he's
I am the calculator after all.
He's a guy that adds some scoring to the third line. However, if Robertson has a bad game this game, he's not playing game 2. I guarantee you that.
And if you think of McMahon's on the third line, he's a 20-goal scorer.
McMahon and Domi, I wouldn't be shocked if at some point those two flip-flop.
Yeah, for sure.
Because personally, I preferred McMahon on the second line and Domi on the third, but I think they want Domi playing wing, so he has less defensive responsibility. I think that's the...
And for me... Center Holmberg?
Holmberg, center line.
And Holmberg doesn't have the offensive talent, but he is so gritty. He's very good in the corner. His bottom body strength is unbelievable. That's kind of like Sidney Crosby, I would say, for the bottom strength. You know, he's very strong down there.
Hey, Holmberg, 7 goals, 12 assists, 19 points. But I will say with Holmberg is, though, of late, he is on a 3-game point streak to close out the year, right? So he was starting to play pretty well. He's a guy that doesn't need a lot of ice time to make an impact, and he plays physical, right? 6 foot, 201 pounds. He's a bigger guy that will use his size.
Don't let the whole Swedish thing fool you. Like, I didn't even, besides his last name, I even forget he's Swedish because he plays that North American style. And yeah, he did struggle at the beginning of the year. And yeah, I was hoping for more out of him this year. But considering he was in and out of a lineup, he finished the year out very well. And he's getting faceoffs.
Oh, Shades is also watching. What up, Shades? Hope
Shades!
Thanks
for your 58-minute question yesterday.
Where I think this is going to sound weird, but I feel playoff series are won in the trenches. And I think where Toronto has the advantage in the forward group, it's funny enough, the fourth line. And this has been an issue for Toronto the last, I would say, 3 to 4 playoff runs. The fourth line has been kind of With Lorentz, Lawton, and Yarncroke, that's a third line on a lot of teams, right?
That's an incredible fourth line.
And I will say, Scott Lawton, as much as everyone's been poking fun at him, he's been looking a lot better of late. Actually, I think him playing with Domi for a little bit really boosted his confidence. Oh, and 100%. Now him, Lorentz, and Yarncroke, that's a pretty good fourth line. I think Yarncroke will step it up in the playoffs. I really do. I think he's gonna get going.
I think
you gotta remember with Lorentz, he's got 3 or 4 game-winning goals this season.
5, bro.
Wow.
Only 7 goals all year, and 5 of them are game winners.
Yeah, Lorentz is, and I will say, Lorentz, this guy's going to get paid. This guy's going to make some more money after this contract is up. I feel like. 8 goals, 11 assists, 19 points. Like. He has been, and as you said, Dan, out of those 8 goals, 5 of them being game winners, only missed 2 games all year. One of the very few guys that was always able to stay in the lineup out of the bottom 6. Had a couple fights this year, has a shorthanded goal. Like, he's just seems to be a guy that's been able to make big plays in big moments.
And he was a big piece of Florida's fourth line where he won the cup, too.
And it's just the Ottawa fourth line. I'll be honest, this is almost an AHL line.
Yeah.
And this is where I think Ottawa takes a dive for me.
I think, too.
And I think you could argue, truthfully, you could argue the Leafs have more top-end talent. Ottawa has more grit. Toronto has more depth in the forward group.
I think, too, if Nick Cousins was healthy for Ottawa, this would be a whole different topic. Because Nick Cousins is a guy that can fight Max Domi. He can fight, he can hit, he can bring back the Battle Ontario vibes. And I thought it was such a great signing when they signed him. From Florida, won the Cup last year. Now, question is Nick Cousins and Dylan Cousins related?
No clue.
But I'm just saying, that'd be kind of a funny tidbit.
But
I think the wild card for Toronto is Kelly Youngquist. Because if Youngquist wasn't injured, he would be in the top 6. We got him way at trade deadline. It's like getting extra trade.
mm-hmm.
And Youngquist did get 7 points in his 20 games he played down the stretch, with only playing third and fourth line minutes. So I think Youngquist is going to be pretty healthy versus everyone else because he only played 20 games.
And what I love about Youngquist as well, and you hit the nail on the head about this, about his points and how he was almost like adding another guy at the deadline. He's a guy that, depending on game situation, I may put up to the second line when I'm trying to defend a 1-goal lead with 3 minutes left.
100%.
He's a guy I can put on my penalty kill. I can put on my power play. He is just someone that really, I feel he's a big piece where I know you're never a fan of him, but he's like a better Alexander Kerfoot. He's a Swiss Army knife for this lineup. You can kind of put him anywhere, and you know he's just going to do the job right, which is so. I'm going to give the Leafs the nod at forward group, although I would give Ottawa the nod for physicality. I just think Toronto, between top-end talent and depth, I think they have the edge here.
Yeah, I think I could actually disagree with you. I think Toronto's got the non-physicality too, because you had a Scott Laughton, you have Max Domi, and you have Steve Lorentz. What was our big physical? And Matthew
Big physical players,
big physical guys.
They're not going to play the minutes
all
that a guy like
lines.
Brady. They're not guys like Brady Tkachuk and Dylan Cousins who are going to be plowing you over for 20 minutes.
I think Matthew Knies would be.
Matthew Knies potentially. But now what I'd like to look at here.
One thing I just want to strictly, because I gave a wild card to Toronto, I want to give a wild card to Ottawa. I say the wild card to Ottawa is David Perron. He was injured half the year, and boy, getting him back healthy was like a trade for Ottawa. He's fit in perfectly down the stretch, and he's a great player in Detroit and St. Louis and Edmonton. Boy, Ottawa got a real winner of him.
Have you noticed how many great players we are saying from Edmonton?
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, Perron, okay, he hasn't had a great year in Ottawa of 9 goals, 7 assists, 16 points in 43 games, but he's had some really strong years. Like Detroit the year prior, he did have 47 points and 17 goals, and the year before 24 goals. He's been consistently high teens, low 20s every year of his career in the NHL for the most part. So yeah, he's definitely, I agree with you. He's a wild card player that could kind of like, if you remember the Boston Bruins, how Jake DeBrusk would always mess things up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
David Perron, last time he played in the playoffs was for the Blues in 21-22. And in 12 games, he had 13 points.
Yeah.
So I'm not going
to
you run the zoo with either one of your picks.
And he's got playoff experience.
Lots of playoff experience.
Lineup is missing. They have really rely on Claude Giroux and David Perron here.
But what I want to look at more here, and I don't want to look at the percentages too much, because I'll be honest, I don't care about the percentages of the power play units.
You're thinking the same thing. Special teams.
I want to look at the PP1 unit for each team. So
yeah,
Ottawa runs Tkachuk, Cousins, Batherson, Stützle, Sanderson.
Wow.
It's interesting to me that they still use a defenseman. I like that they still use a defenseman, by the way. Looking at Toronto's power play unit, it's the talent on it is undeniable. Knies, Tavares, Nylander, Marner, Matthews. What's the issue?
No defense. That
is where I'm worried about Ottawa scoring some shorthanded goals. Because
Ottawa's known for
Ottawa. Their top penalty kill unit for Ottawa is Pinto, Giroux, Sanderson, Zub.
Wow.
You get Pinto and Claude Giroux getting on a break with Marner defending a 2-on-1 or something, this could be some problems for Toronto.
Yeah.
Toronto needs to be they won't do it. I wish they would use the 5 power play units situationally. That's what I've been preaching for months now. When you're down a goal, put the 5 forwards out. When you're up a goal, put 4 forwards, 1D. Up 2 goals, 3 forwards, 2D.
Especially when we have Morgan Riley and OEL.
They're 2 defensemen that have been running power plays for years.
Right. If we didn't have offensive defensemen, I get it, but that's not the case. We got 2. Okay, we only got 2, but we have are fantastic.
Now, mind you, Toronto as well, though. Their top penalty kill, you got Holmberg, Marner, McCabe, Tanev. So you know Marner can score some shorties, right?
Yeah.
And Tanev, as much as he isn't a huge offensive guy, has been able to make some really nice passes down the middle.
He has, yep.
So I don't want to break down every single one because we don't have 6 hours. But who has the advantage with the top power play unit and the top penalty K unit? Dan, who do you feel has the advantage there?
I'm going to go off the board here. I think Ottawa's got advantages to the power play just because of Jake Sanderson. He's a special player. His dad played in the NHL for years, so the family knows, kind of like Domi, like, understands the rivalry and everything. And I think you're right, Jacob. I think us not having a defenseman back there might come back and bite us. So I think Ottawa for power play. I think when it comes to penalty kill, surprisingly, I'm giving it to Toronto because of Chris Tanev. Chris Tanev broke a franchise record this year with Maple Leafs, the most shots blocked ever. Mm-hmm. And Chris Tanev is one of the best set-down defensemen in the NHL. So what do you say, Jacob? Who's got advantage in power play and who's got a penalty kill?
Now, funny enough, I'm just as much as I didn't care about the percentage from the season, I did quickly look that up while you were talking there. Don't worry, I can multitask.
Multitask.
The Leafs were 9th best power play in the league with 24.8%. Senators are 11th with 28.3%. So, because I'm like, these units look pretty even. I wonder if statistically they were even, and they were. So, I'm going to give a bit of an answer that you're probably going to get mad at me about. If the power play for Toronto is clicking on all cylinders, it's better by far. Both power plays are clicking. Toronto's is better. Toronto's power play, however, has been inconsistent. So I think Ottawa might have a slight advantage with consistency. Like I could see Toronto scoring 3 power play goals one game and then not scoring another power play goal for the rest of the series. That's my big concern. So I'm going to give Toronto a cautious advantage on the power play. Mm-hmm. Now, when we look at the penalty kill, Ottawa's penalty kill this year was 77.7%, sitting at 19th in the NHL. The Leafs, 77.9%, sitting at 17th in the NHL. However, I'm giving Toronto a much bigger advantage on the penalty kill than what the statistics are showing, because we talked about how Toronto's deeper on defense, and I think I agree with you, Dan. Chris Tanev is almost like having an extra goaltender out there.
Yeah, he's a beast.
Block shots, like he eats pucks like they're for dinner.
Look, he has no teeth left to eat so many pucks.
I'm going to give Toronto the advantage there. Funny enough, there's not a huge gap on the penalty kill between other teams. Like Carolina, the best penalty kill in the league is 83.6%, where Toronto at 17th was 77.9%.
Yeah, it's not a huge gap at all.
It's not a huge gap. And I will say, I think for Toronto, if memory serves me right, their penalty kill was like 2nd or 3rd worst in the league last year. So I think that's a big difference from Berube. So actually, I'm going to do one more category.
Are we thinking the same thing?
I think we are. Who's
the best coach?
Who's the better coach?
Yeah, see? Brotherly connection. We're on different floors and we're still connecting.
Are you thinking, I'll even let you go first, Travis Green or Craig Berube? Who's got the edge coaching?
Boy, I got to say, this is a tough one too.
It is.
Because both Green and Berube, especially Green, played for the Toronto Maple Leafs and played for the Maple Leafs during the Battle of Ontario, Travis Green. So it's kind of a traitor going the other side now. Craig Berube did play for Toronto, but he wasn't there for the Battle of Ontario. With that being said, as much as I like Travis Green, I give the advantage to Craig Berube. Craig Berube does have a Stanley Cup with St. Louis. Travis Green, I really love the guy. But what did he do in Vancouver? The whole thing just fell apart. So for that reason, I give it to Craig Berube. What do you say, Jacob?
I'm also going to say what up to Max Hornell over on Instagram, checking us out as well. Sorry, Max, your Red Wings didn't get it done. I do see some bright future in that team, going into next season if they get rid of their 4 mediocre goalies and get one good one. But
hey, Max,
I am also going to give Craig Berube the advantage for coaching, but it's more just coming down to experience. And Craig Berube has led his team to a cup before, where you haven't done that with Travis Green yet. He's gone on a bit of a playoff run to Vancouver, but nothing crazy. I know he's had a lot of playoff runs as a player, but I feel it's two different things. So I'm going to give Craig Berube, the Chief, an edge. I also, though, we just got a text message in.
Ooh.
Got a message on the Streakers Island podcast Facebook page. I guess they don't want to comment on it on YouTube, so I'm not going to say their name, but they're saying you are forgetting that the Ottawa Senators have no pressure on them versus the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Good point. Yeah.
It's a great point. The Toronto Maple Leafs have so much pressure on them.
Yeah.
Now, pressure can make a diamond, pressure can make crud. It really depends here. But I do agree, the Ottawa Senators, if they get swept this round, I don't think their fans, they'll be disappointed, but I don't think they'd be, do I think the series is going to be a sweep? Absolutely not. But I don't think they'd be disappointed the way if the Leafs go out first round, even if it's to 7 games and all 7 games go into triple overtime,
I'm going to flip clap if they
the Leaf fans will not be happy. And this is, I'm going to say it, this is Marner and Tavares' last chance, I think, as a Leaf to show why they should be here. Because if they don't get it done, I think both of them are gone.
100%. It doesn't matter how they lose. If the Leafs lose, even if it's triple overtime in Game 7, it's an epic fail.
100%.
Doesn't matter how they lose.
So we're going to go soon. We're going to wrap up soon because Dan and I are both big dudes. We want to eat our greasy pizza. But let's do our predictions for the series. We've gone over the defense. We've gone over the forwards. We've gone over the top power play and PK units. And
one thing we didn't go over, who has the advantage in fans? Whoa.
This is an interesting one, actually. I'm glad you brought this up. So what's interesting about the Ottawa Senators have been making it harder to transfer tickets so people can't sell their tickets to Leaf fans. They're really trying to keep it a pro Senators crowd. However, there's going to be Leaf fans there, whether they like it or not. Florida tried the same thing last year.
Yeah.
And it failed. Tampa tried the same thing before, and it failed. Toronto will have more fans. The Canadian Tire Center will be louder.
Oh.
Because let's be honest here, and I'm just going to say this, Leaf Nation, the ACC, or whatever you call it now, does not have the same atmosphere compared to one of our viewers of the program was out in Winnipeg for the whiteout.
Yeah.
And that atmosphere was electric versus I don't think we're going to get the same atmosphere in Toronto. I could be wrong. Maybe the ACC will be rocking like it was in the early 2000s, but at $380 standing room, I don't see it happening. I think Ottawa fans are more going to be rocking because they haven't had a playoff game in a long time. I think people in Ottawa will mortgage their house to buy a ticket. I don't think Leaf fans will. So it'll be interesting to see, though, will the Leaf crowd be louder in Ottawa than it is in Toronto?
Whoa.
But who do you think is the advantage, Dan, crowd-wise?
I was going to say the same thing. By the numbers, the Leafs have the advantage. I mean, there are Leaf fans nationwide, right? Versus Ottawa, you're lucky to have some fans in their backyard, and that's about it. But when it comes to noise level, I will say Ottawa for sure, because Leaf fans are at bottom bowl. It's all corporate and it's all pretty quiet. And, you know, even the Leaf players have kind of came out and called out the fans. It's just pretty crazy. You normally don't see that. It's normally the other way around, right? The crowd calling out the players. So hopefully the fans pick it up. I will say, if you go back to the Battle of Ontario in the early 2000s, the ACC was walking because it wasn't so much the corporates taking over back then. So maybe the Battle of Ontario will bring that out again. Who knows?
Anything's possible. But just checking, a cheap seat in the 300 levels is $319 for the game tonight.
That's a good deal.
$272 Canadian on StubHub.
It got down in places. It was 380.
Well, I mean, now you're getting close to puck drop, right? So you're just looking.
So is there tickets available?
On StubHub. These are people reselling tickets, but you're looking. You got some over here in the $700 range. 100s in the corner, $1,000. Like these seats are actually, that's a great deal for $496 behind the net. But the tickets are very expensive. Now I'm curious here. We're going to check this live on the podcast, guys. So what's more expensive, Toronto or Ottawa?
I'll say Toronto.
Your guess is Toronto?
What about you, Jacob?
Well, I can see it on my screen. Now I'm going to share the screen.
Okay.
Is everyone ready?
Yeah.
Boom! Ottawa's more expensive.
Whoa!
$432 for a limited obstructed view.
Wow.
On StubHub.
Is that because they haven't made the playoffs in 7 years?
I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
But interesting to see there. And like most expensive ticket in Ottawa. What's your best view? $5,000.
Holy cow!
$5,741. That's insane.
You can buy a car or go to a hockey game.
I can mortgage my house for half a year.
Oh, wow.
That's insane.
Well, we know you got a great deal on your mortgage. Sell to your mortgage guy, Jacob Clegg. Boy, you got a great deal.
Anyways, I just wanted to mention that there. I'm curious. What's the most expensive game ticket for the Leafs tonight? $3,739.
That's because it's so close to puck drop.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think these tickets would have been interesting if I had checked this sooner, but I just thought of this. Yeah. So that's the fun of live. We just do things on the go. But
literally,
who's winning game one tonight? We already said who's winning the series. For anyone who doesn't remember, Dan and I each picked Toronto.
I picked it in
Chazzy
7.
picked Ottawa. I said in 6. Dan said in 7. I think Chazzy did Ottawa in 6 or 7.
Yeah, he did.
Which I got to say, that means he did pick Toronto to win a game or two. For anyone who watches the show, Chazzy does not a Toronto Maple Leaf fan. He's like the anti-Leaf.
That's why we kicked him out.
That's why we kicked him out. That's why he deserves to be. That's why he has a circus picture, and I keep the circus book so I can bob him over the head with it. But who's winning tonight? Game 1, Ottawa or Toronto? Dan, remember, Dan, you need to challenge me on the Streakers app because you're running out of time to get a challenge in.
I already did, bro.
Well, challenge me again. Just more challenges.
Okay.
Anyways, if anyone else wants to challenge Dan or I, make sure to download the Streakers app on your mobile devices. It's a lot of fun. If you have any questions on how the app works, just reach out to us. I want to say this. If Dan can figure out this app, anyone can. And Dan, I'm sorry, I'm not being mean. But Dan, more for your money is not more for your technology. But he can work this app. But Dan, who's winning tonight? Are we thinking the Leafs are going to continue the playoff success against the Senators? Or are the Senators going to continue the recent success against the Leafs? Leafs haven't beat the Senators yet this season. Who's winning game 1?
Leafs have been my first time tonight. I think
Give me a score.
Score? I think it's going to be a close game. I'm going to say 3-2 Toronto.
I'm also going Toronto, so this is boring. But I'm going Toronto. I am going 3-1 with the third being an empty netter for Toronto. Ooh. I think Anthony Stolarz is going to have a humongous game, and I think so will Allmark. But I think the depth of the forward group is going to be the difference. Now, if Ottawa can get a win, number one, if you disagree with us, just grab your cell phones and get on that Streakers app and tell us that we're idiots.
But if you got a question, you can ask the CEO himself, too.
Yes, but if Ottawa wins this game, they will out-hit Toronto 2-1. And that's how they'll win.
Yes.
So wait for that. I think if Ottawa can win this game, they're going to out-hit Toronto 2-1, maybe even 3-1. $1
million question is going to be a fight this game.
I'm going to say no.
I'm going to say yes to a fight. I think it's going to set the stage early.
If there is a fight, it will be in the first 7 or 8 minutes. I think there'll be an early fight if there is a fight. But we need to fight for the right to watch the Leafs.
And fill up our bellies.
I do want to say quickly, though, I was wrong about game 1 between the Devils and the Hurricanes.
I was right.
Man, the Devils played bad.
I knew it.
I will say, though, Jacob Markstrom gave them a fighting chance. So watch out for that if they can get some more shots on Anderson. If you can start getting 30 to 35 shots on Steady, Not So Freddy, next thing you know, that could be a very different series.
You can tell that was the Sheldon Keefe coach team. They looked like make honestly last year.
And I wonder how Mr. out there forgetting about Rantanen now after you watched Stankoven play a great game. Played great.
Great game.
So that's very interesting to see. So
and Taylor Hall had a couple of assists too.
Good on Carolina.
And I called that. I said Taylor Hall's going to play big in that series.
Good on Carolina for taking a bad situation and finding a way to make it work. But thank you very much for watching the Streakers Island podcast live edition. I will post this full video to the Facebook page just so if anyone who wants to see it, even though by then the game have already started, maybe you still want to look at our sexy faces anyways. But thank you very much for watching the show. We'll be back on Tuesday to recap what happened in the Montreal Game 1. We'll get more of our thoughts on that series. We did a lot of that in our show on Saturday. Sorry, all the days get mixed up in my head. So make sure there to check out that episode as well. But Dan, do you have an island mindset for us before we go?
Do what? There's a good one out there. I was thinking about this, okay? And we talk about Battle Ontario and the bloodbath and the rivalry and how they hate each other. They beat each other up. What? That's all fine and dandy. But at the end of the day, no matter how much you hate the person, you gotta remember underneath the jersey, it is a real life person here. So as much as we want to see a good fight, we want to see entertainment. We don't want to see any crazy injuries here, and player safety should be number one.
Just safety in general. And I'm going to say, if you're watching in Canada, you are early voting ends, I believe, on Tuesday. I got out and did my civic duty today. Dan, I know you did a few days ago. I'm not going to tell you who I voted for because, frankly, you shouldn't care who I voted for. Just make sure you get out and vote. I don't care who you vote for either, but just make sure you exercise your democratic right. We are seeing record numbers in voting in the early polls from what I've been seeing on social media. So great job, Canadians. You're making us proud. Make sure you get out and vote. And be safe, everyone. I'm Jacob Moore, the self-proclaimed sports analyst. That's Dan Moore, More for Your Money. Woo! We'll see you on Tuesday.
Bye-bye.